At that time, I felt like life was great because I was smoking. I felt like that's all I needed. My mom wouldn't call me anymore. My mom didn't care. She was like, whatever, you wanna get into all that bad habits? Go ahead, but I'm not gonna stop you. So my mom pretty much, she kind of just gave up on me. My mom, like I said, with her boyfriends, she would rather call her boyfriend, hey, are you okay? Even though he was out there cheating on her, my mom would bow down to him and, take care of him. And once again, she'd leave me out, but then I was already gonna turn 18, so what could she do, right? There's this verse that I wrote down. It's in Jeremiah 29, verse 11. And it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans I give to you, plans to give you and hope a future." And then there's another one that is 1 Peter 5, verse 5. "In the same way you were younger, submit yourselves to the elders. All of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble." With that, I'm sorry. There was a time in my life that I felt like I had nobody. And it was all my fault. I had pushed my dad out of my life. I told my mom I didn't want anything to do with her anymore because she would rather pick her boyfriend over me. I hadn't talked to my sisters in over 6 months. I hadn't talked to my dad. I hadn't talked to any of my family. I felt bad, but I didn't want to call my dad and say I was sorry, because at that time I still didn't care. I didn't want to say I was sorry. I knew the things that I did was wrong. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I didn't want to call my dad and say, look, I'm sorry for doing this. I didn't even want to call my sisters. I felt so bad for my sisters because I'm the oldest sister, but my brother, he's never been around either, but that's a whole different story. But my sisters really, really do look up to me. Now that I'm back at home, they love to be around me. They don't leave me alone. They sometimes annoy me. They like to stay up late when I have to go to work the next day. They don't text me when I'm not home, but when I'm home, they're just bugging me. And I felt bad because I hadn't been home in over 6 months. My birthday had passed. I didn't get a call from my parents. I didn't get a call from my family. And I knew that I wouldn't, because I knew that what I had did was wrong. I knew that the reason why they didn't call was because of me, not because of them. Christmas came around and I texted my dad and I was like, hey, is it okay if I see my sisters? And that was it. I didn't say, hey, look, I'm sorry for what I did. I said, look, can I see my sisters? It's been months since I've seen my sisters. I have a job now. I want to be able to buy them something for Christmas. Their birthday is past. Let me buy them something for their birthday. And luckily, my dad said, okay, I'll let you see them. So then when my dad told me, yeah, you can see them, I thought everything was just perfect. I thought everything was going to go smooth. I thought my dad was going to take me back. I thought I was going to be able to move back in. When I moved in, I met my sisters at the mall around Christmas time, and it wasn't the same. It was kind of like, I was expecting them to be like, man, Moni, I missed you, or, Moni, why haven't you called me? Well, when my parents dropped them off at the mall, they left somewhere else, so I got to have them for a couple of hours at the mall, and I took them out to dinner and got to buy them some stuff. But like I said, they were like distant. They didn't want to hold my hand walking in the mall. When I bought them stuff, they didn't say thank you, but I couldn't get mad because, I hadn't been around in so long. Why would you? I just want to come into your life all of a sudden and you want them to tell me thank you. I I expected more. I guess it just didn't go as I had planned. I felt miserable. I was angry. I was so upset. I hadn't been to church. I hadn't heard a Christian song. I used to love to sing. I used to come in the car and sing all the way to church, all the way back home. I used to come up stage and I used to sing part of the choir. And I didn't like to go to church. I didn't like going to church. I didn't like talking about God. When I was living, I actually moved in with that guy that I had met. He was my boyfriend at that time. I actually moved in with him. And his mom was real, I don't know, I guess you can say religious. I don't know. She was Catholic. She went to a Catholic church. She liked to go on those Acts retreats. And she told me one day, she was like, well, you want to come with me one day? And I said, well, what's an Acts retreat? They don't do that at our churches. The churches they never used to do that. And she's like, well, you just let go and, things just go with the flow. Things happen, right? So it's like, okay. So I had to pay like $140 to go. And then I was going with people I didn't even know. I'd never seen in my life. I was going with women. I was only 17 years old still, and I was going with a bunch of like 30-year-olds. Not saying that y'all are old or anything, but like I wanted to go with people my age, and they didn't have anybody. There was no teens that were going. I had heard back in Natalia that they would always have like these teen retreats. It's kind of weird though. When they'd go on the retreats, they'd be so excited, so happy. And they'd come back and probably for like 2 days, they'd be like, yeah, let go, let God. I learned so much. God's, He's my all. And then 2 days later, they'd go to a party and they'd drink. They'd go to a party and they'd smoke or stupid stuff like that. So I was kind of confused with that. I don't know how Catholics do that. They go and they party and then they go to Acts retreats and act all into it, I guess. I don't know. I actually went on an Acts retreat last February 2nd through February 4th. I thought it was going to be a good experience. At that time, I felt like it was because I hadn't been in church in so long. I had forgot how it felt to be in church. I was actually amazed that I was actually into it. The things that they did was kind of weird because it wasn't really my thing, but I went with it anyway. There was one time when I was in that Acts retreat, they told a story, and then they had us go to the back and talk to one of the priests, and they were like, well, you can go ahead and confess your sins. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I've never done that. I don't do that at my church. I never used to do that. So they were like, well, what have you done in your past? And I'm there thinking like, man, I've done so much and nothing that I've been proud of. I went to the back, I talked to the priest, and he started asking me all these questions, and I'm like, he's like, well, what church did you go to? And I'm not going to church right now. I stopped going to church. And he's like, well, what church were you going to? So I told him Sus Flores, and he's looked at me like, he was an Asian guy, first of all. So he's like, what? He's like, Sus Flores, I've never heard of that. And I said, well, it's a Nazarene church, Christian. And so he's like, no. And I'm like, no, what? What do you mean? He goes, so you don't go to Catholic church? And I said, no. He goes, so then what are you doing at the Acts retreat? So I'm kind of like, they try to invite people to go to Acts retreats, and then they ask you like, what are you doing here? Well, what do you mean, what am I doing here? I'm here because I'm trying to seek God, and I'm trying to do something, right? And he started telling me, well, what have you done? So I started telling him things that I've done. I was drinking at parties, I was smoking, I was hanging around with people that I wasn't supposed to be hanging around with. I was hanging around with like a bunch of these thugs and gangsters and wannabes, and it was terrible. I thought I was cool at a time. I went to a party with I went to like 3 parties in one night, and I thought it was so cool because I had never done that in my life. And I stayed out to probably like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I had to work the next day. And my manager at work is like, she had kind of knew my past with like the whole thing with my dad and what I was going through. And of course, they wanted to be on my side, so they're like, don't listen to your dad. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what he's doing. Everything you're doing is perfect. You're doing everything fine. Everyone was telling me that. Everybody was telling me, you can go out and drink. It's not a problem. You can go and get high at night. This doesn't matter. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if this grown-up says it's okay, then it must be okay, right? It seemed that everybody at work, I worked at HEB Plus, and there's a lot of employees. It seemed like everybody knew what I was going through. So then drama started happening, and that got kind of crazy. I actually got into a little fight with one of my cousins. I don't know if y'all know her, but she used to come here. She was my best friend when I was little. She's probably the only friend that has ever stuck by my side. All my other friends, my friends from high school, I don't even talk to any of them from high school. They don't call me and say what's up, or they don't care how I'm doing. So my cousin, she was actually my best friend. I think besides hurting my dad, she was probably the next person that I hurt bad. I had posted a bunch of stuff on Facebook and on Twitter, on Instagram, about how much I didn't want to be part of my family, how much I didn't care about my family, how much I was, how happy I was that I wasn't a part of their family anymore. And little did I know, they were all seeing what I was posting. They all saw my tweets, they all saw my Facebook statuses. I had friends that were friends with them, so they would go and they'd tell them, or my dad would see it. And I was, whatever, I don't care. I don't care if my dad sees this. I mean, he's not in charge of me no more, so what can he tell me, right? I didn't care. I did not care. When I got into a fight with my cousin, it was actually at work. I was on the clock. Someone had told me, that girl Sabrina I was telling you about, Sabrina Morales, she worked with me. She's the one who got me a job. She told me, hey, that looks like your cousin right there. And I'm freaking out because I'm like, what is she doing here? Like, she has no reason to be here. So I'm getting all, hyped up. I want to get all, and I see her and she's in the line and she's smiling at me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like something's gonna happen, something's gonna go wrong. She ended up going through my line. She went through my line and we kind of exchanged some words. I kind of heard her say something, so I wanted to get mad and say something back, so I did. She walked off, and I happened to be carrying out a basket for some old lady. I was helping her, so I was, crossing the road, and I see my cousin's car coming up. Like, I was walking through the crosswalk, and she was driving, and I see her, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, I hope she doesn't get off. So she rolls her window down, and she's like, hey, let me know when you're free so we can fight next time. And I'm on the clock, so I'm like, okay. I was like, well, how about we do it right now? Let me go call my boss so he can watch. So she puts her car in park super fast. She gets off and she slams the door. And in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never fought in my life. I don't know how to punch anybody. I was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh. As soon as I saw her get out the car, I turned and I walked inside because I was like, you know what? If she's gonna hit me, I want someone to see so that they see that I didn't do anything, right? So as soon as I know it, she hits me in the back of my head. And I freaked out because I'm like, did that just happen? Like, my best friend from my childhood, did she just do that to me? So I'm freaking out because I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I ended up going inside, the cops got there, the managers were all talking. Well, my cousin had already left by the time the cops got there, because y'all know the cops take like hours to get there. I had called my mom and I'm like, you need to call my dad, you need to tell him, look, your niece hit my daughter, you know. I was so furious. Yet all the stuff that I had been posting, I mean, she had a reason to hit me. She shouldn't have hit me, but you know, all the stuff that I had been saying, all the stuff that I had been posting was horrible. My dad actually has copies. He kept copies of everything that I posted, everything that I tweeted. And he showed me one day and he's like, look, I didn't even remember half the stuff that I had been posting. Half the stuff that I had said about my dad, that I didn't care if he was here tomorrow. I didn't care if something happened to my family. I didn't care if something happened to my sisters. I posted so much stuff on the internet. I was like, wow, my dad showed me. I was freaking out. At that time when my cousin hit me, I was kind of like, I didn't know whether that was like the end. I mean, after that, I didn't think anything would get better between me and my family. I didn't think I would. Then I told everybody, I'm never gonna talk to my cousin ever again. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if me and my dad, you know, come on good terms after this, but I'm never talking to my cousin. I'm never speaking to her again. Well, now we're like best friends, so. Let me see. I wrote a verse down, and it's in 1 John chapter 1, 9 through 10. It says, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. Proverbs 3, chapter 3, verse 5 through 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and learn not in your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. After finally bashing my family on Facebook and on Twitter, I still went out and I partied. I still went to parties. I still drank so much. I literally felt like drinking and doing all this bad stuff was what made me happy. At that time, I felt like life was great. I didn't have anybody to tell me what to do. I didn't have anybody to tell me, be home at this time. I didn't even have anybody to cook for me. So I was literally eating dollar burgers from McDonald's every single day. Or I would go home to my aunt's and I would make those little cup noodles. Because my aunt, she didn't care about me. She cared about her daughter and that was it. She didn't care if I ate. She didn't give me money. My senior year, I stopped going to school in December. I didn't drop out. I didn't withdraw. I just stopped going to school because I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to learn. Me and my cousin, the one I had been living with, had actually gotten into a fight. So there goes another friend that I'm not talking to. It's been probably like, within those 6 months, I became friends with 4 people. And in those 6 months, those 4 people weren't my friends anymore. Do any of y'all have friends that always tell you, you know, I'm your best friend, I'm always gonna be here for you no matter what, no matter what? Is it seriously forever? All of y'all that have graduated, like, do y'all still have friends that talk to y'all? Do y'all still have friends that call y'all? And literally, I don't have any of them. I must have had some really bad friends because I don't have any friends that I talk to. I talk to my sisters and I talk to my cousins. And then I talk to my aunts. My aunts are pretty cool though. They understand me and they're young like me, so they understand a lot. I stopped going to school because I didn't want to learn. I thought working at HEB, getting paid $7.50 was fine. I thought that was enough for me. I had actually gotten moved up to cashier, like, yay, right? And I was getting paid $9.20. I thought that was cool. I thought that was fine. Before I had moved out, I wanted to go to school for interior design. I didn't even know what kind of job I could get with that. I just wanted to do something. I just wanted to do something to get me through in life. I stopped going to school. Finally, I went back to Highlands after like 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna withdraw. And I'm gonna start working. I'm gonna work full time. And, you know, everything's gonna be okay. I'm gonna prove to my dad that I can do everything by myself. I'm gonna prove to my dad that I don't need him. I don't need his money. I don't need him to help me. I don't need anything from my dad. I actually, on Instagram, I would always post these pictures of what I was doing, of what party I was going to that night, of what I was drinking. And there was one person I had on Instagram who comes to church. I've never really spoken to her. I mean, I've told her hi and stuff like that. She's actually here tonight. Never really had a conversation or anything, but she would post things on her Instagram that kind of made me think about my family. There was this one picture I had posted a while back when I was going through all of this. I think it was of me and my dad, or of me and my uncle. And she commented on it, and I think she put, "Is that your dad?" or "I remember your dad," or something like that. And she was going to church, and I always see her. When I go to any church function, I always see her there. I always see her there. She's always in the front, or she's always giving someone advice or something. And when I had her on Instagram, I was kind of like, she's not going to tell my dad anything. She doesn't even talk to my dad, right? Or she doesn't even know my dad anymore. They don't even talk. That's what I was thinking at the time. Well, then I was like, well, I think her dad's a pastor. So if this gets out to the pastor, it's going to make me look like a horrible person. Horrible, horrible person. It was actually Brenda that I had on Instagram. Say hi to Brenda. Once I had her on Instagram, for me, I don't know, I kind of felt like she followed me for a reason, or I followed her for some reason. I don't know what that reason was. I just kind of felt like she was put to do that for some type of reason. The year went by. It's probably like May. I graduated from high school. I got my diploma. I didn't finish school, but I went to a little school program. It's called Brody Lee Academy. Passed the test, got my diploma. Easy, right? I ended up moving to El Paso for 2 weeks. I thought I could make it. I call her my stepsister. I grew up with her when I was little. She was my mom's husband's daughter, right? Yeah. I had grew up with her, and her husband had been in the Army. So she's like, whenever you need a place to stay, come over here. We can find you a job. We can start, college together, something. So I was like, okay. I took a plane, went to El Paso. Stayed there for 2 weeks, and I was like, I need to go. I can't be here. She has a daughter. Her name's Autumn. She's so cute. She was always filled with joy. She was always laughing and smiling, and she reminded me so much of my little sisters. It made me cry. There were nights where I would cry to sleep because I missed my sisters so much. Finally, one day, out of nowhere, I got the courage to text my dad again. And I texted him, and after all that stuff that I had put through, I wanted to let my guard down. I wanted to let go of that pride that I had, to tell him, look, I'm sorry for this, or I'm sorry for that. Before any of that, when I was out still doing my thing, I didn't care if I was wrong. I didn't care if I was always right. I didn't care. I didn't want to apologize to my dad just because I didn't want to. Something gave me I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a sign. I don't even know if it was probably Brenda that I had on Instagram. I thought she was watching my every move. I was so scared to post stuff. Oh my goodness. I was so terrified. I actually texted my dad one night, and I was crying and crying. I couldn't stop crying. My stepsister was actually so worried because I had locked myself in the room for 2 days. I didn't eat. I didn't shower. I wasn't hungry. I didn't want anybody to be around me. I wanted to be myself. I was trying to think of all the things that I had done in that past year that I could try to fix. I wanted to be able to go back to my grandma's house and spend with my family. I wanted to go to holidays with my family. I had spent my birthday, Christmas with nobody. I spent it alone. And that was my choice because I didn't want to be around anybody. Once I got the courage to text my dad, I said, look, I'm sorry for everything that I've done. You know, if you don't want to forgive me, I understand. But just listen to me. Let me tell you what I'm sorry for. Started telling him, you know, all that stuff that I've been posting. I didn't mean to post it. I hadn't even remembered what I had posted. I didn't remember putting that. I didn't care about my dad. I didn't even care what had happened to my dad. I didn't know I posted that. But my dad had all of it in record, so he had everything like written down. We kind of had a long talk through text, and he kind of like stopped, and he texted me about 15 minutes. He's like, what are you doing in El Paso? And I was like, well, I kind of moved over here because I thought it would help me out. I thought it would kind of get me away from things, you know? He's like, well, I don't know where he was out. He was out of town working, and he goes, well, my plane leaves tomorrow to San Antonio. He goes, but I have to stop in El Paso, and then from El Paso go to San Antonio. He goes, so how about we catch a plane? So I'm so excited because I'm finally gonna see my dad after several months, and I'm just thinking, man, after all the stuff that I have done, my dad's cool. Like, he wanted me to go back home. He wanted me, you know, I'm pretty sure it wasn't gonna be that easy once I saw him in person, but he was like, well, let's get a plane together. You know, we can both, you know, show up to San Antonio at the same time. You know, tell me what your seat number is, and I can, you know, see if I can get a seat next to you. So I'm like freaking out. My stepsister doesn't know anything yet. And she's like, well, what's going on? And I'm like, well, I'm gonna go back to San Antonio. And, you know, I texted my dad, and I told him I was sorry. And she's kind of confused because the whole time I had been there, I had told her I didn't want anything to do with my dad. So she's like, I thought you just told me last week that you didn't want anything to do with your dad. I thought you told me that you didn't care what happened to your dad. I thought you told me that you didn't want to be part of that family anymore. That's why you came over here. And I was like, yeah, but, you know, I texted my dad, and he's okay with everything. And, you know, he's gonna take me back, and everything's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be perfect. Well, I came back to San Antonio. My dad came back to San Antonio. He wanted me to go to the house, which is Natalia. So I was like, well, my friend is gonna pick me up. And he goes, well, who's your friend? And this friend happened to be Sabrina Morales, that girl I had told y'all about. And my dad didn't have anything against her, just didn't like her as my friend. Didn't want me to hang around with her because she was the reason why I wanted to go out and drink. She was the reason why I wanted to go out and do the things I wanted, because that's what she was doing. She lived with her mom, and her mom was fine with whatever she did. Her mom cared to a point to where she was 20 years old. I was 18. So that one thing, my dad's like, well, why are you hanging out with her? She's older than you. Like, why should you be hanging out with someone like that? So she's kind of, I don't want to say she's the reason why I did everything, because it's kind of me. I kind of didn't want anything to do with God. I didn't want to go to church or anything. So I was kind of like, whatever. So I went back home, and I started telling my dad, you know, I'm sorry. And me and my dad had never really had a close relationship. We'd hardly hug. I would hardly give him a kiss goodnight. But I would get so jealous because my little sisters would run up to him and, hi, Dad, give him a hug and a kiss, I love you. And then me, on the other hand, I was just like, oh, what's up, Dad? You know, hi. Daniela's waving back there. She wants y'all to see her. She's a pain. I was just a jealous person when it came to my sisters and my cousins. When my cousins would graduate from high school, my cousin, my best friend, she graduated from high school, and I felt like everyone was just so proud of her. I mean, she had graduated high school, right? She was the first one since my brother didn't graduate. So everyone was just so happy for her. You know, I was excited, but then there was a point where I was like, okay, she's getting too much attention. That's not fair. Like, this should not be happening. I'm a really, really jealous person, and it's not good, but I finally was talking to my dad more, and for some reason, about a week passed, and I stopped talking to my dad again. It was probably like mid-June. of last year. And I was like, I didn't want to call my dad and see how he was doing. I just felt like he needed to call me. I felt like he needed to text me and, hey, are you coming over? Or how are you doing? I didn't feel like I needed to do that. I felt like it was my dad's turn. Since I had went and apologized to him through text, I thought it was okay for him to come and look for me. Well, probably like a month went by and I was still going out, hanging around with people. Moved in with someone. I thought I was grown up because, like I said, I thought I had everything. I thought life was perfect. I thought it was great. You know, nothing had happened to me. I had another set of friends that I had made because my last friends like ditched me. A month of that happened, and then finally a month, like after that month, I started talking to my dad again, and he's like, well, how about you come to church for Mother's Day? Okay, you know, my family's gonna be there. Hopefully, you know, things will go good, right? I thought it would be good. It didn't turn out so good as I thought. My family was still very upset. I didn't know that I had hurt that many people with the things that I had done. My grandma, I call her mommy because she's my mom. She was always there for me. Always, always, always. And I felt like I really let her down. My grandpa passed away in 2008. And my grandma's the only thing that I have left. Like my other grandma on my other side, she don't care about us. She's my mom's mom. My grandma's always been there for me. When I saw her on Mother's Day, I wanted to act like nothing had happened. I went up to her, hey mom, you know, happy Mother's Day. And she kind of looks at me like, what are you doing here? She didn't tell me, but I kind of got that look like, you know, what are you doing here? Like I said, I thought everything was fine. With me coming to church again, I thought everything was going to be perfect. I thought my family was going to drop everything. I thought everything was going to be fine. And it was total opposite. I had to go through a couple of months with still not speaking to my dad's family. You know, none of my cousins, none of my aunts and my uncles didn't want to speak to me, and I don't blame them. I really did put them through something that no one or no family should ever have to go through. My family is we're really big and close family. Every Sundays, you know, we'd get together after church, we'd go eat at my grandma's. One of my uncles would always cook lunch for us, everything. Well, that kind of changed. After I would come to church with my dad, we'd go out and we'd eat something, and then the rest of my uncles and my aunts would go to my grandma's, and I wouldn't talk to them. Well, finally, I actually sat down. I had actually moved in with my dad probably in about August of last August. I finally moved back in with my dad. Things were going great. Everything was perfect. The only thing was that I wasn't speaking to my family. After I had said sorry, we got invited to a party. You know, I got the chance to speak to my uncles and my aunts and tell them, you know, I was sorry for everything that I had done. I was sorry for everything. I started school. My family started coming around more. Me and my family started talking. We started getting back to where we left off. I put so many people through so many things. It's unbelievable. I started school. I went to college. I graduated actually about 2 weeks as a dental assistant. I just finished my extern, and I'm going back to church. I was able to find God again. I found a church that I enjoy, that I love, that I like. Sundays are my favorite days out of the week, and I'm not saying that to be sarcastic. I love going to church now. I love being a part of church. I love everything about Sunday. And now that I have my family back, everything's just perfect. But the whole point of this whole story was that, seriously, no matter how far you try and distance yourself from church or from God, or no matter how many sins, you commit anything, He's always there. He's always going to be there for you. No matter if you betray Him, He's always there for you. He's always gonna be by your side. The whole time, I thought I was living day by day by day because I didn't know if I was gonna live the next day. I was scared. But because I had faith, I started confessing to my sins, I started telling people sorry. He was right by me. He never left my side. All the times that I thought he did, he never left my side. He was always there for me. I don't know if any of y'all or any of y'all teens are going through or went through the things that I did with partying and just things in your head that you kind of felt alone. Just don't give up. It's not worth it. Things will get easy, but then they'll get hard. For me, luckily, I got my family back. My family's actually here, and I'm so glad they got to hear this, because I hadn't shared my story with them. And it means a lot for them to be here. But if any of y'all feel like giving up or feel like y'all have nowhere to go or feel so alone, just don't stop believing in God. Don't stop going to church. Don't stop praying. He's always, always, always going to be there. I don't know if any of y'all would like to come up and pray with me. I really do appreciate y'all coming out today and letting me tell y'all my story. It really does mean a lot. Like I said, I was kind of nervous. I was really nervous. And now being able to share with y'all, and I hadn't shared my story in over a year with anybody, not even my dad. So it's kind of a first time for everybody. I just really want to thank y'all for coming out and listening. I never thought I would actually have this opportunity to do this. So it's kind of a really big thing for me. I had picked a song that I wanted my dad to play for me. Kind of just explains it a little bit easier. My aunt actually told me about this song, and since then it's really, the song kind of just impacted in my life. It really makes me feel good when I listen to it. That's it. Like I said, just don't give up. Things are really, really hard out there. You might think that you're grown up and that you can do everything by yourself, and it's really not easy. I went through it, and now that y'all know, hopefully y'all don't ever make the same mistakes, or your little brothers and sisters don't make the same mistakes I did. I'm gonna have my dad play that song so y'all can go ahead and listen to it. Thank you.